We are almost live. I will let you know when we're ready. All right, we are live, and you may begin when you're ready.
All right, cool. Welcome everybody to July 16th Full Design Review Board meeting. I call us to order. We have a quorum of 6 out of 9 members. That may be updated during the meeting, but we have 6 members right now. I have no opening remarks. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? All right, motion passes 6-0. Staff, I'm assuming we have some meeting minutes we need to officially approve.
Correct. That is going to be June 18th, June 25th, and July 9th.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve June 18th, June 25th, and July 9th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. All right, now I'm looking for any general member comments. Any comments that are not in pertain to any of the applications tonight. This is a public meeting, so any general Reston Association member comments? I don't see anybody. So that means we will get jumped right in to our first application, which is an appeal. So is the appellant here for Golf Course View Cluster? I believe it's RA is the appellant.
That is correct.
Who will be presenting? Cam?
Yes.
That is correct. Cam Adams on behalf of Reston Association Board of Directors. Michael, if you wanted to, the Design Review Board could, of course, motion to go into executive session to discuss or consult with counsel. So that's still something that if you'd like to do before you take up these appeals, you're more than welcome to do so. But Reston Association has filed the appeal on this application for Golf Course View Cluster. Based on the decision on page 2 of the application appeal, there was a motion to disapprove the existing regrading in locations as indicated on submitted site plans, as it may not be in the purview of the DRB, and that Reston Association staff were requested to explore whether this project requires DRB approval. Of course, there are several things that are concerns that we have as it relates to that decision. There was a prior DRB decision which requested the applicant to provide the additional information. Number one. Number two, to confirm restoring grade back to the original condition, which I believe is the intent of the application. There needs to be, there's a need for the property owner or cluster to provide the original versus the existing grading plans to confirm that that is the intent. Even if an application is technically not required, if that's the stance of the Design Review Board. And lastly, if this matter is believed to not be reviewable by the Design Review Board, then it would be our belief that the Design Review Board should have taken no action versus making a decision whether to approve, disapprove, or defer the matter. It should just not take the matter up at all. And that should have been made at the June 11th DRB meeting. So that is our position on this appeal.
Okay. One point of clarification, and I don't know if it matters. With an appeal, does it need to be, because I know Brian, John, and I were on the panel, and now that means we would only have 3 people allowed to vote on the appeal. 3 out of 6, it wouldn't be a majority. Would that?
Michael, that's the day that Emily subs for me.
Oh, okay, perfect. Then never mind. So it's 4, we have 4 people that can vote. So my question is mute. Does any of the board members feel like we need to go to executive session to talk to Tony? All right. So I would take that as a no.
Excuse me. I would assume that board members who are disqualified from voting, if they felt they needed to speak to Tony, they could as well. So.
Yeah, so it was John and I part of this decision, and Emily. And we were, the new information they're proposing, I guess the information of, since we already had requested, there had already been a previous DRB decision, we can't, then defer, deny it and basically say it doesn't require DRB approval. I've been since corrected that this would require DRB approval per kind of our guidelines. So because of that, I can't make a motion, but I do see the issue at hand, and I guess we would need to potentially look at it de novo with that kind of stance, because we just didn't know how to deal with it, because they basically were putting back with what was there already. And so that's why it was, I didn't feel like there was an application necessary, but I have since been corrected. So,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was open to all members that were here if they felt like we needed to go to executive session. I didn't.
John, do you feel
Unless we
like,
could vote to preclude that?
yeah, John, do you feel like you want to talk to Tony at all? John, you there?
Excuse me, I had mute off or on. No, I do not.
Okay. So if anyone but John or I want to make a motion on the appeal, you're more than welcome.
I make a motion that we grant the appeal
All
based
right.
on the new information.
Okay. So there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Mike Beal, second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any against? And then 2 abstentions for John and I. So motion will pass 4-0-2. All right, so we'll hear it de novo. So is the cluster association representative here?
Yes, and the president is unmuted.
Former president, not just a director, but yes, Gordon Simonet, board member, Golf Course Youth Cluster.
Hey, Gordon. So John and I obviously know a little bit about this, but if you want to walk us through kind of what happened, there was basically damage to the common area, and then you guys, there was obviously some water issues associated with the damage, and then you guys basically put it back. But then we asked for a DRB decision letter in June 11th, basically said to request some information of what was there previously, essentially, to ensure proper drainage has been restored. So I guess take it away from there, basically.
Yeah, so from the point in time that there was excavation work done on that part of the cluster, members of the board engaged with conversations with Miss Evers, who was the person who brought the complaint to Reston Association. And we also engaged with others, specifically, folks from Northern Virginia Soil and Water. We engaged with, and you have to forgive me, it's in my 20-page initial letter appealing the decision by the DRB that we had to take, that this was a complaint that was valid. But there was somebody else that we spoke with from Reston Association, talking about what would be required back there to restore the area back. And after that, we did put together a plan. We submitted that. And the problem was that our landscaping vendor, Blade Runners, they did not wait for us to get DRB approval on that plan. They went ahead and restored the area by reseeding. And the word regrading was also put in there, and I know that's a sensitive word for what you guys are looking for. I know that it had been explained to me that one of the things that the DRB was concerned about was whether the work that had been done would adversely affect homeowners downhill. So since that time, the grass has grown beautifully. Every major rainstorm, members of the board have been out there observing whether water is moving in the right direction, whether it's pooling or not. And we've had blade runners come back out themselves to assess the site. And they gave us a statement that that normal water movement had been restored, and that the ground is absorbing the water as it should have been in the first place. I think the big issue that you all were citing here was that we did not provide an actual drainage plan from a drainage engineer. We requested that from Blade Runners, and they did not provide one. And they said that they did not provide one because the scope of work did not require it. And so what we're hoping, honestly, one of my emails, I invited somebody to meet with me and our vendor, Terry Turner here from Blade Runners at the site, to kind of put eyes on it to see, like, does this still require action on behalf of the cluster to meet a requirement that you guys have. And we would hope that, when I say we, the cluster would hope that you all would take Mr. Turner's statement and close the case. The grass has grown back, and we're not seeing any water pooling on any of the homes on that part of the townhouse row that would cause a quote unquote drainage issue. So that's kind of the top level, Mike. I don't know if I answered your question specifically, but hopefully that did.
No, I think that's a good start. I do believe we have an affected party on it, so I have to hear from them,
Yep.
and then we'll come back to you with any questions. Okay.
Mhm.
Staff, is there still an affected party on this one? I mean, the statement I received seemed like it was in reference to
Yeah.
actually the application G, which was after this one, but I
No.
could be incorrect.
She's for Martha is an affected party on both both applications, F and
All
G.
right. So as an affected party, Martha, you have 3 minutes to state your affected party status, and staff will keep that time. So
Thank you. Martha Evers, I'm at 2092. Yeah, there was no proper grading plan done. I spoke to Terry Turner the day that they did the grass work, and he stated that the area does need a drainage system. The grass seed will not address the water flow problems coming off the common area. He also stated that Miss Utility was not called because there was no digging. And it's they never submitted a proper grading. Like, it's kind of like the Blade Runners should not be doing this survey work. We're supposed to getting a grading plan showing that the work would keep the water off the properties. What happened was the water was coming off the common area directly into my yard and was a contributing factor of my sewer pipe collapsing. And I was told by Gordon Simonette, who just spoke, that unless I become a member of the Golf Course View board, I will never be allowed to drain water off my property or get any projects approved. So I started working with Genesis Forsica at Reston Association, and there is pooling and ongoing problems back there. And the board is the problem because we're trying to drain water. The individuals, there's 4 experts that were involved there, that Ed Rhodes from Reston Association, Daniel Schwartz from Fairfax County, Jesse Fervinsky from Drainage and Erosion Solutions, in addition to their own Blade Runners company, are all in dispute of just putting grass seed down on a major drainage and erosion problem. I have installed drains, and then they're constantly, I am in compliance with Ed Rhodes, who said that from Reston Association that the drains need to drain water out, off, and away from the properties, down the hill and into the drain. And the board is saying, no, if you're not a member of the board, you can't drain water off your property, or that you can't divert it away. So the cluster is in violation of 4 experts that have been on site. It pulls, my concern is that there's no, the grass seed, yes, it's grown back and it looks nice, but it's not addressing the erosion and the drainage problems at all. I have also submitted a medical letter, ANOVA, Family Medicine of Clifton Centerville, that I'm respectively requesting a reasonable accommodation with my age and disability under the Americans with Disability Act to be able to have water draining off my property. This is why we went to Reston, because the board refuses to allow drainage. And the grass seed on top of this, and it didn't address any of the issues and of all.
Pardon me, Ms. Evers. That is your time. The board can extend your time if they would like.
It's okay. I think we get that there's, the drainage. So thank you. So staff, can I now motion? I want to make a motion to executive session to talk to Tony, because this is what led me to the first decision. And I would now like to talk to him.
Yes.
I'll make a
You're
motion.
making that motion, I'll second it.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. If we could go to executive session, that'd be great, staff. Thank you.
Okay. One minute.
LaShonda, as the host, you won't be able to go into executive session. So
Gotcha.
if you want to make Patrick the host.
Okay.
And Patrick, you'll need to make her a co-host.
All right, we're back. All things discussed in, I'm doing a cleansing motion for all things discussed in the executive session were appropriate for the executive session. Nothing else was spoken about. And Tony, did I miss anything that I need to add to that? Is Tony here?
Tony is here. You might be on mute, Tony. Uh, I'm not seeing him.
He's
Do I need to add-
here and
Do I need
he's
to add
fine.
anything to that, Cam, that cleansing motion?
I would say that you are moving the design review board was discussing and consulting with legal counsel on all matters that are appropriate for executive session to include violation matters and consultation with counsel to the best of your ability. That is what was the discussion limited to.
Exactly what I said. Thank you. Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. All right, we're back. So, does anyone have any questions for the applicant for this application? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to dismiss this issue due to a lack of jurisdiction on the DRB's part. The landowner appears to have resolved the maintenance covenant violation by taking a course of action, an option provided by the covenants administration of restoring the site rather than altering existing conditions, restoring the site back to existing conditions. Therefore, that is not in the purview of the DRB.
There's a motion.
Second.
Brian with the second. Any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. All right, next appeal. Application G is the appellant here. Cam, welcome back.
Yes, on behalf of Ruston Association Board of Directors, we are appealing the prior decision that is on page 3 of the application. The panel on 611 disapproved the regrading in locations as indicated on submitted site plans. As it was not in the purview of the DRB and requested RA staff to explore whether the project requires DRB approval or not. To my knowledge, and based on the indication on page, I believe it is page 29 of the application, and the drawing that was provided by the applicant, there are 2 specific elements that have been requested or currently exist. One would be the exposed downspout that goes to the edge of the property that expels on the sidewalk cluster common area. If we could go to page 29 in the application. You can see it on the left-hand side facing 2088, I believe. It expels, it says drain tile existing. There is actually a downspout corrugated extension from the property owner's gutter downspout that extends to the sidewalk, as well as, if you could see, there are certain aspects of this that require or is being proposed to have stone installed to help with the regrading that has been suggested to address the foundation issues that the property owner is experiencing. And so those 2 elements are subject to the design review board's purview in terms of exterior modifications. And so the resident association would request that the DRB accept the appeal.
Okay. Any questions for the appellant? All right. So once again, John and I were on this panel, and we kind of made a similar decision as the previous application due to kind of us feeling that there wasn't anything that we had. I was unaware that there was that. I mean, it's labeled as existing, but basically I didn't know that was the pipe on the left was part of kind of the complaint and the violation. So to me, that is new information just for the record. We did not know about that. So we were focused so fully on the right-hand side of the property. I didn't even know there was kind of other stuff going on, to be honest. So, John, do you have anything to add to that? He's muted, but I think he mouthed no. Could be incorrect.
Excuse me. No, I have nothing to add.
That's what I thought you said, but so does anyone want to make a motion?
Mike V will make a, oh,
No,
you beat
you
me
go
on
ahead.
it.
No, you go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the appeal on the grounds of new information.
I'll second. How's that?
All
There
right.
you go.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? And then John and I abstain, so motion passes 402. Is the applicant here for this application? I believe it's is it Kim Beckett? Is that right? No. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I think there's some mix up in information, so I do want to clarify that. So the picture that you took of the white piping is in the back, and that's already been resolved, and that was a separate issue. And someone from Restaurant Association came out, and that's all been fixed and resolved. So that's separate from this. So I do want to clarify some of these, the bits of information that's been put forward because it's not accurate. So that's all in the back, and that's all been addressed. And someone from RA, I do apologize, I don't recall their name, came out and approved and said it's all been handled. If you go back to the picture of the drawing, yep, thank you. To the left, the corrugated piping that comes out, it was suggested that I get plants to kind of cover it up, which I did. So there's monkey grass that oversees it, that's over it, as well as there's another plant on the other side. I forget the name of it. I do apologize. So it is covered up. And really, this is just about on the right-hand side. It was actually at the suggestion of Ms. Evers to regrade it. And once I was in a position to kind of look at that, I did. And so the idea is really just for on the right. And it's the application is just for the front of the on the right to regrade that part at her suggestion. Because to move water away from the foundation and to make it a lot more aesthetically pleasing, and to because the water pools, I had submitted to Barbara Carpenter a picture which shows the way the land is. One, I'm lower than Miss Evers, as well as the way it pools right next to the pathway up to the steps. It pools there and, in icy conditions freezes over and is not aesthetically pleasing. So the idea was to make it, regrade it, that right-hand side, simply to make it better for a drainage flow. And I'm lower than her, so I'm not exactly sure how it would affect her. And it would be a lot more aesthetically pleasing for both the neighborhood as well as for my yard, which would benefit everybody. So that way it's taking better care to kind of build like a rock bed of some sort or something. So that way it's a lot more manageable with the water that when we get these hard rains, it does pool right at the bottom of the stoops and stuff.
And so can you clarify, so would all that brick material be removed as a part of
Yes.
this?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah. No, I want to get rid of it.
Yeah, okay.
The problem is actually I'm creative with plants. I wouldn't say I'm a creative with rock beds and stuff like that. So I just didn't have a vision as to, okay, how can I make this pretty, but also drain better? And I wanted to get rid of the rocks because, I mean, the bricks, because I don't think it's very attractive at all. But didn't have a vision. And then some people gave me some ideas. And so I started researching it. And that's why I came up with that, they helped me come up with this idea.
Okay.
But a lot of the other pictures, it's related to something that's already been resolved and approved by RA. So I just want to make sure we're sticking with the facts.
Yeah, and staff, do you have that picture of the black downspout on the left-hand side?
That's the back. Yep. You'd have to come out and take pictures now just because the monkey grass has been added.
Okay. Yeah.
And someone did come out and they said, oh yeah, this looks much better. I was like, yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, because I know sometimes with the downspouts, we allow short extensions that can be covered by vegetation, but if it's a long extension, or I think the one picture I saw was that it was directing water right onto the sidewalk out front, not your sidewalk, but the actual out front sidewalk, which we don't, our guidelines don't allow. So staff, do we have that picture that you showed us, or?
I can cut it shorter. That's not a problem, but then it is going to impact my other neighbor, Kirk. Because of the way, as you see, the land goes downwards, and I don't want to ruin his, azaleas. That doesn't seem very kind. And actually, I do find it interesting that the complaint is only against me. Yet, if you walk the neighborhood, most neighbors have that. So that does make it a bit tricky.
Okay. Yeah, hold on. So I think this was one picture that we were provided that just so this I just wanted to show this for the record of where it's being dropped off on the sidewalk, and that is just that was part of the new information kind of that from the appeal standpoint. I think we'll talk about the right side, but we wanted to talk about the left side as well. So staff, I believe there's an affected party on this, so let's go to them and then we'll come back to you, Kim, with any questions that we have for you. Okay. Thank you. So affected party, I believe it's Martha again.
Yeah, hi, I'm at 2092, which is to the right. I'm in disagreement with my name being used. I'm appealing all of this information. The most important thing I got was a certified letter from Reston dated April 27th that there are no violations in regards to my landscaping or my drainage. There's multiple violations at 2090, April 27th, May 23rd, shed until June 30th to fix the front and rear gutters. Like you were saying, the one on the left dumps out onto the common sidewalk. I have a medical letter with ADA asking that these long above ground drains dumping onto the common sidewalk are a hazard. The paperwork here, I have not in any of agree with this. The reason that my area has no violations whatsoever. And it was my understanding they keep trying to dig up my drain in that area. The reason that it's so lower than my property is this obsessive digging, all these bricks, the trash cans, which should be far on this left side, the trash cans go behind that. The drain comes out. The other thing is there's no indication of a scope of work. I don't know who's doing the work. I am not agreeing with any work to be done on my property. My name's being used. I was not told anything about any of this. I'm in disagree with it. There should be no activity on my property at all. And I have a certified letter that Reston said there's no issues on me. And then we have a June 4th letter, again in violation. There wasn't to be any work done until all this is resolved. What it is, it's covering over the drainage problems with a bunch of plants. There's no irrigation addressed and there's no drainage. The rear area the property has been landscaped way out into the common area and the drain was cut off. It was a 6-foot extension, according to Ed Rhodes, that it needs to be out in the common area, drain down the hill and go out. They cut the drain off right at the property and it floods the whole back area. So, I mean, yeah, I'm in total disagreement with this. No one has spoken to me. My name's being used. It's incorrect. I mean, we've got, it was a year ago that she was supposed to be, 2090 was to be addressing all these drainage and erosion problems, and it's still not done. And it's turned into like a landscaping project that, according to the June 4th letter, there's no work to be done until this is all resolved from Patrick Coffey. But in regards to that area in the middle between the two properties, no issues with my property. She's trying to draw my area into this problem. It's all these, do-it-yourself projects and digging up the ground.
Pardon me, Ms. Evers, that is time.
Thank you, Martha.
Sure.
So does anyone, let's go back to the applicant. Does anyone have any questions of I guess staff, one question about the pipe, the drainage pipe on the left. I know we'll get to the right side. The drainage pipe to me is longer than what we typically allow to be covered by vegetation. I mean, I know we allow that for short extensions, but we don't have an exact dimension. But to me, this is at least, from the plat, at least 20 feet or so. This would not qualify for that portion of our guidelines.
The design guideline doesn't actually stipulate a length. So our rule of thumb has been that any part that's visible that is exposed needs to be buried. And I believe the picture that we showed on the screen was from November of 2023. So I'm not sure if there's been any change to what you saw on the screen to now. I'm sure the homeowner could confirm that. But of course, we would prefer some sort of pop-up or an emitter that maybe was more aesthetically harmonious with the exterior of the property, but there's no length that's defined in the design guideline.
Well, but then also in our gutters and downspout guideline, we do have runoff direction, which says be careful to direct runoff water away from sidewalks and driveways to prevent icing in cold weather. It's kind of it's under the comment section. It's not I don't know if that makes it an official, portion of the guideline. I just, even a pop-up, technically, if it's put right there, would kind of still emit water potentially onto the sidewalk. Which, I mean, the thing is, we have a big enough front yard here. To me, we should be able to, try to mitigate some of the water runoff on the property if, landscaping is our best friend, and she has a lot of it, and it looks, she has a lot of it, so it looks like it would absorb some of it. Putting water onto directly other people's properties is kind of sometimes part of the issue. So that's the one side. The right side, my question for you, Kim. So you're saying that you're going to put rock there, but the application just kind of says kind of raised grade in shaded areas. But you're saying you're actually going to put maybe some
actually, I was given an idea about like a rock bed to make it a lot more aesthetically pleasing, and so that's the idea, is to pull out the brick because it looks hideous, and to put make it a more attractive rock bed. You can't really plant much there.
Are you going to put a pipe under the rock bed that's going to go somewhere?
I don't need a pipe. I don't need a pipe.
Okay.
No. There'd be no piping, nothing like that. It's literally just
and then obviously I'm just asking for the record, but you're going to stay, from your property line in.
Yes, sir.
With everything.
Yes, sir. And actually, I do want to go back. So the picture you have, from November, is not the way it looks anymore because of the monkey grass. So the pipe is hidden unless you want to lay down and look at the piping. So it is covered because actually by the letter from Ruston Association was suggested to cover things up with plants and stuff. So that's what I did because that was a suggestion of the board. So I did that. And And but on the right side, there would be no piping at all. There's not a need for one. When I shortly after I moved in, I had to put in a French drain because of the like groundwater issue that was affecting my basement. Excuse me. So it's just to regrade and make that a lot prettier because it's not very attractive on the right side.
And so the other, let's call it a hatch or a scribble line on around the AC unit and to the left of your stoop, that will not be stone. That would just
No, it's just on the right side. And
Okay.
the left, I do plant a lot of plants. So I'm just trying to fill in with more plants, but that stays on
Okay.
the left. Hatch, I guess is what you call it, the L-shaped.
or the shade, you reference it as shaded area. I'm just going off the application that was provided and just
Sure.
confirming it against your statement. So that's
Sure.
all I want to make sure. Does anyone have any questions for Kim? I'll go around the room. Elena, do you have any questions?
Thank you. So you have a French drain in your front yard?
Yeah, front. It all feeds to the back actually, because there was water. And so the way they graded and dug up the basement, they graded it and did it towards the back.
It's internal to the house.
Yes, it's an internal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
sorry. I
Yeah, I
apologize.
think
It's an
it's like a
internal.
it's like a foundation.
It's a
mechanism.
foundation drain. It's not.
Yes,
a
yes,
true
yes,
French
yes,
drain.
yes.
Okay.
Because shortly after I
Okay.
moved in, there was groundwater that was coming up in the basement. And so I had some people come out and saying, it's not coming from the roof. How do I fix this? And they said the best way is a French drain. And so I did that. And so it goes out the back.
Okay, so it's internal. I was
Yes.
picturing a dry well in the front, which
Oh, no.
is often called a French drain. Okay, so is there a reason that I'm missing that you can't disperse that water in your lot that's coming off that existing drain tile? Right now, I'm looking at page 29 of 29, staff. And it just seems that draining water onto a sidewalk is going to cause problem, especially during the winter when it can get icy.
In all honesty, it's never been an issue because I'm also pretty particular about shoveling. And I just, working in cardiology is just the way I work.
Yeah, well.
But so I've never had an issue with it. And really for me, this is about the right side where there is no piping at all.
Understood. So, and then my question on the right side is that what kind of stone okay, now I'm going to ask Mike B to pop in because he's our PE, but stone is not impervious and it doesn't run things off. What it just does is depending on the size and the grade of stone, what kind of stone you're using, it just lets the water drop down to where grade is faster. So that's not going to help runoff. So it's not really raising existing grade. Water takes the quickest route in gravity, and the joints between stones are the quickest route down.
Right. In all honesty, we hadn't finalized a set type of stone. I want to be totally transparent. And so nothing had been finalized as to a specific type of stone.
And right now, there's not currently a water issue in that back corner. It's strictly an aesthetic issue, right?
It's an aesthetic issue, and there is a water issue. So at the end of the steps, behind the tree, it pulls right there. Sorry that you guys don't have the picture I submitted to Barbara, but that shows that there's a gap for the grading, and so it pulls all there. And so that actually does freeze in wintertime because it's about that of a difference. So trying to kind of clear that up so that way it's a bit better.
Gotcha. Well, then you may need a pipe then under the stone. Because
But
that's
it wouldn't be pulling
that's
from
why I
anywhere
asked.
though. It wouldn't pull from anywhere. It's just the natural flow of water from the properties above me that it just naturally comes down.
Michael, if I may,
Yeah, go for it, Mike.
so do we have, so there's a low point that's just collecting water that doesn't have anywhere to dissipate? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
slide
Elena-
27, Steph. If you
Yeah,
go to slide
there we
27, Steph, you can kind of see it, Mike. So it's, I
Yep.
mean, it's basically behind, it's been caused by this nice, beautiful big tree in the front yard. And then there's
Yes.
the sidewalk.
Right.
And then basically, if you zoom in right there above 05, that's probably,
Yes,
based on just
that's
looking
your-
at the picture,
yes.
that's probably where all the water pools right
Yep.
now. Yeah.
So I
So,
want to pull out that brick and kind of, you know, add some dirt and help make it look a little bit more attractive because that's where it pulls. You know, during the hard rains and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So without doing anything else and topping it with a stone material, Elena's absolutely right. It's just going to allow the water to run through it and it will go where it's going to go. So some manner of collection system would be prudent to collect it and get it somewhere else, right? If you don't want it to just pool there. And
Mhm.
it'll pool there until it overtops your sidewalk and runs where it's going to run. So
yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Elena.
no, I'm sorry. I was suggesting a yard drain or something like that, but I'm sure
Yep.
you're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the French drain you had installed, you know, to combat the foundation water, just something to collect it and a pipe to effectively move it someplace else to allow it to dissipate rather than sit against, you know, your existing infrastructure there.
Mhm.
So that's the
Right.
critical
To me,
bit.
if she likes plants, I would even find a water-loving, shade-loving plant. like a-
Absolutely.
Put a
Well,
bunch
I
of
have
ferns
thought about
there.
that is actually getting water attractive plants that will thrive in that kind of space. You know, because I like lots of plants. You know, in Scotland, you have lots of plants.
Yeah, so I mean,
Here.
that,
in
to
that
me,
regard.
that's gonna look. I know people like Riverjack stone, but the reason why Riverjack stone is there is usually it's covering a pipe. That's the reason why it's there, or it's covering a dry well, or it's covering something that is actually collecting the water below
And
that and taking it
collecting
away.
and conveying it away. It's the filter media for the water to run through to that other collection system, right?
Correct.
I mean,
so
yeah,
that's one reason why
Michael,
we're
you and I
bringing
are. Yep.
Yeah. So aesthetically, it definitely looks better than the brick. It's just not necessarily going to fix any of your issues if you just put a layer of stone down, is basically what we're saying. So,
I guess the question for me is, does it need DRB approval if I'm trying to kind of on the right side is what I'm talking about.
It depends what you're going to do.
Great answer.
Once again, it's back to kind of what our previous decision was on the previous application, where if you're putting it back to the way that it was, and let's say you're putting back plant material there, or mulch and plant material, that's the way that's the way it probably was before somebody started putting all this. They probably had plants there that weren't doing successful because of the water, and so they put down these bricks to hope something. I don't know what they were hoping, but it didn't. So
it didn't do anything.
But if you decided to do an intervention with stone or whatever that you can see, or timbers or something to that effect, then it does start. Then it comes in our our back in our purview.
Sure. Actually, no. I'd like to get rid of the timbers that outline, because I think they're not attractive.
Yeah, and they're probably they're not helping either to that issue with the water ponding as well. So anyways, let me go around and see if anyone else has any questions. John, do you have any questions? Samantha?
No, I have no further question.
Brian?
No questions.
So what I am thinking, and I'm not making a motion yet, but what I'm thinking is maybe, if we request a, just basically updating the plan that she already submitted, that drawing on 29, that basically kind of clarifies a little bit better on exactly if she does want to propose stone. I think it is a good option. I just think that it needs to have an actual point to it. So if
Okay.
it's gonna have a pipe that maybe goes under your sidewalk and then has a pop-up emitter in the middle of all those, you know, nice plants there and gives them water, just as a thought, you know, could be an idea. There could be, you know, a way to just maybe plant that right side and just maybe put some stone in the back, you know, corner. So I think I think
So you guys need more information.
I'm thinking that we just need a little bit more information and then a
Sure.
little bit better exit information on and you may show us that the drain tiles have been adequately covered, and she says send us updated pictures, and that might be
Of
adequate.
course.
But I would say if it's still going directly on the sidewalk, our guidelines do not like that, because, you know, worst case, it's just even if, you know, you're out there shoveling, whatever, there's small water drips that just come through there over time. That thing probably isn't even really draining that well if it's that
It
horizontal.
actually is short of the sidewalk, so it actually falls
Right.
into the thing.
And so you might have a better way to show us kind of the existing
Okay, sure.
a little better. So
Okay, that's
I
fine.
would-
That makes sense.
what I would say is I'm going to make a motion to defer the application to allow the applicant to submit updated information on some of the existing drain tile on the left side, as well as provide an updated material or plant matter or plan of action on the right-hand side that is clear to us as a board with more information.
Okay.
So there's a
Okay, that
motion.
sounds great.
I'll second it, Michael.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. All right, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, could we get a timeline?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
for two.
Say 60 days to
Sure.
submit.
Not a problem.
Are you okay with that, Brian?
Yes.
Seconded?
Yes.
All right, is everyone else who voted okay with that? Say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? All right. Timeline of 60 days added. All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kim.
guys. Thank you.
All right. On to Armstrong Elementary. They're back with just some couple minor final things, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if LaShonda's or Cam are going to introduce this, or I can just.
Take it away, Pete.
Okay.
We
All right.
we know you well enough now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Pete Bloom with Fort Copeland Mock Architects, and we're doing the design of our Armstrong Elementary School for FCPS. The last time we met with you, well, and actually prior time, you had asked us to do a couple of things that we studied and had begun to implement. And the most recent appearance in end of May, you asked us to look at three things. One was the retaining walls that would allow us to preserve a featured tree that we had been requested to preserve, and we'll show you how we can do that. Another thing that you had asked us to look at was the extent of mechanical screening on the roof, on the north side of the roof, that could be added to screen some mechanical equipment from both the back of the school and the play field in particular. And then the last thing that we were asked to do was really to elaborate on the tree planting scheme for the added trees that we're suggesting for the zone between the play fields and the school. So if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, you could pause right there. The tree in the upper left-hand corner of the sheet, we, as before, are able to retain we're able to keep, I should say, and with a small, by virtue of a small retaining wall that's under 2 feet. previously, we had thought we could save both trees 3170 and 3169. We had been asked to look at saving tree 3170. And it turns out that we could not get a small enough retaining wall that would work for that. Our retaining wall was going to be too high. So if you go to the next slide, please. So what we're proposing is adjacent to the children's play area or the outdoor classroom, we are going to be able to still save the tree number 3170, which is the specimen tree that people have asked us to save. But we're going to have to do it by splitting the retaining wall into 2 steps. And by virtue of doing that, we're not able to save the smaller tree, which had kind of been a bonus. The 2 steps, what we're proposing to use is this block wall system. It's a curved, so it's a semicircular curved wall. We're proposing to make it out of Nicoloc, which is a brand name, but it's basically, it looks like stone. It lays up a little bit like block. The color we're proposing is York brown. So there would be 2 walls. There would be a smaller 2-foot wall, and then inside of that, a 2-foot wall. And we would stay as far away from the root zone of tree 3170 as possible to ensure that it has the best possible chance of survival. Okay, so that's how we're responding to your comments for that. If there are any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to address
That's
them.
the same for tree 3073 along the parking lot, right?
3073, we were able to retain with just 1 retaining wall, and it's below 30 inches. So we didn't have to add a second one, but it'll use the same materiality. Yes.
Same material. Okay.
Yep. All right. If there's no more questions on this, I would go to the second item you asked us to look at, which is the next sheet. Okay, on this sheet, you can see if you zoom into the middle of the sheet, the roof plan of the building, there's a big red L. And that is the extent of the area that after our last meeting, we agreed to develop as a shielded area behind a louvered screen. So we've done the work to do that, and then we have some views to support that. So if you could zoom back out, please. Okay, if you can zoom to get the perspectives on the right-hand side in, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. View 3, at the very top of your screen, you see there, you can see that the louver effectively screens. There are 3 mechanical units in that vicinity, and you can see that they're quite effective. The louvers are 7 feet high. There's a gap at the base of them so that snow loads, that stuff don't accumulate there. And then there are louvers they are weather louvers that you can't see through, but the air can move through. If you look at the middle view, this is from further up on the play fields. You can see how the louvers retain their effectiveness, and with the maturity of the trees over time, we think that you'll see less and less of the roofscape of the building. And then the bottom image is really fully on top of the hill, right up kind of between where the backstops are going to be. And we see that we really think by the time the trees grow in and you have the mechanical louver in place, that you're going to have a very shielded screen view. The product we're looking at is Palm Shield. We're proposing it in a gray. It's called a dusty gray, and the gray swatch right above it, called the metal roof, that's called slate gray, and that's just by a different manufacturer. That's by PacClad. Palm Shield, this is the closest match we could get. We're trying to have them kind of blend into each other. And then if you just pan out and get the entire left side of the page. Yeah. At the very top of the screen, you see that there's an enlarged plan showing the details of the spacing of the posts, how far they are away from the mechanical units. Below that on the right-hand side, you'll see one of the sections through a post. Below that one, you'll see one of the sections through the screen section. And to the left of that, you'll see a partial view of one of the screens from the inside. And below those details, you'll see that there are two structural details showing how we have to anchor this back to the existing structure to stabilize it. So the proposal is really for a 7-foot total height screen. It's gray to match the roofs and hopefully go away as much as possible. And it's a prefabricated louver system that will be pre-finished in a gray color. It's aluminum, but it will be anchored with more robust elements to the existing structure. Are there any questions about this proposal?
No, I think you're good. I think that leads into the kind of the views you were showing, kind of leads into those trees. that you
Correct.
were
Correct. So if
presenting.
the next slide, if you'd please move forward one. This is a view of the site's so big it's split into two plans. The top plan, the northernmost plan, shows really effectively all the playing fields that are going to be restored with new backstops, and then there's a pathway an asphalt pathway that's being built around the fields, which will run parallel to the south edge of the baseball fields. On either side of that pathway, we have elected to plant 15 trees to help green the site and to further isolate the views from the playing fields of the roof of the building. And at our last meeting, I think Emily had asked us to kind of be more specific about the actual kinds of trees that we're planting. And if you would go to the next slide, please. Okay, on this slide, what you see is that the added trees are all called out with different letters in front of them. Those with the QP in front of them are willow oaks. So those are mostly on the north side of the asphalt walk. Those on the south side, flanking the central ramp, are denoted with UA, which is for American elm. And then the two flanking the central space are the black gum. And all the trees are proposed to be 2-inch caliper. And we picked a variety of trees, so there wasn't a kind of a monoculture, but also we picked out the black gum to try and kind of help form a space around that intersection between the backstops, a special kind of point of arrival there. Whereas the other trees just follow the hillside on either flank. Are there any questions about this?
I think it's all pretty clear, Pete. Thank you for coming back with the information. Very helpful. Let me go around the room, just double check if anyone has any questions, and then we'll see if there's a motion, okay? Elena, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Samantha?
No, I do not.
John?
No, he seems to have addressed all of the issues we had asked him to do last time we saw this.
Yeah. Mike?
Negative, sir.
Brian?
No questions.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate the extra information. The one tree that we are, losing, I think, actually having the tiered retaining walls will be kind of nice. I think the kids will actually maybe even use it as a little outdoor.
It might be an amphitheater kind of thing.
Amphitheater-like thing, kind of under classroom under the tree there, which is kind of cool. So I think the plan is great. I think we've worked together to get to a great point. The added trees look well. You've done a lot of work, so you always have a thorough application coming to us. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you very much. You guys have a nice night.
You too.
Appreciate
Thanks.
your time.
All right, moving on to, I think it's our last application. Application I, it's for the 2270 Hunterswood Plaza. It's going from a Burger King to a McDonald's, which is feels like it's trading against each other, but yeah. The Burger King's been closed for a while, so is the applicant here?
Yes, we have several members that will be presenting. And I have unmuted Tammy, you're unmuted, or Michael, you're unmuted. I don't see Ian. Ian, if you are here, if you could raise your hand. Let's see. Clay, will you be presenting on behalf of the applicant?
Michael Juriga will be presenting mainly.
Okay, Michael, you are unmuted.
Okay. So, as previously stated, this is a previous Burger King that's being updated to a McDonald's. If you go ahead and go to the existing photos, for the most part, we are proposing to keep most of the exterior materials in place, with a few things that we are taking off. So for the most part, the EIFS and the masonry will remain in place. However, the EIFS will just be the extent for the EIFS will be to put in a new system, but it will be in the same location as the EIFS was previously. I'm sorry. There should be like some existing photos. There we go. So as you can see, there is an existing green mansard with a vestibule outside of it. As a part of updating the building, that mansard roof is too low over the drive-through. If you go to, I believe it is the third page, the western corner at drive-through and trash enclosure.
This is the western corner drive-through from Colts, and then the southern corner.
Gotcha. So there should be a page after that, so it should be the next one. Okay. So essentially, the mansard roof that's currently in place is too low over the drive-through. So there is evidence of existing damage to that mansard. And so part of our proposal is to remove the mansard roof and have a complete EIFS face. For the most part, for the color scheme in terms of what we are pulling from, we looked at the neighbors. So if you scroll to the neighboring buildings, so that'd be the Huntingwood Shopping Center and the immediate neighbor, we really pulled from those existing color schemes of the grays and the whites, with some of that like paneling details. So if you keep scrolling through, we should have some pictures or some renderings of our elevations. There we go. So our elevations, we are keeping pretty much most of the existing elements. As previously stated, we are removing the mansard and we are replacing it with a white aluminum canopy, which matches other white canopies found throughout the shopping center. As for any plan changes to the building, if you go ahead and scroll to, I believe it's the demolition sheet. It should be labeled D1.1. That's it. That's one page up. So it'd be D1.1. So essentially what we are proposing is to keep the existing building mostly as is, with the exception of that mansard roof due to the damage sustained over the drive-through. The vestibule, as we looked at the existing construction documents and on-site conditions, that vestibule was built in as a part of that mansard. So when the mansard would get demolished, that vestibule would also have to go as well. But primarily that's the major change that we are proposing to make on the exterior. We do have a note about the existing concrete pad to remain for the trash enclosure. The current trash enclosure is exhibiting signs of moisture damage. So we are essentially proposing to tear down that existing trash enclosure and rebuild it to what it currently looks like. So it would just be all new material, but it would be the same footprint, same masonry and brick. If you would go to the architectural plan, which is the next page. So here you can see that the interior will be updated to a modern fast food restaurant. The exterior guardrails for that existing patio are to remain in place and to be repaired and repainted. For the handrails, currently on site, they are not ADA compliant, so we are just proposing to add new ADA compliant handrails and extensions, which are to be painted to match the aluminum storefront. So if you go back to those main elevations, we are keeping the existing concrete block and brick, and we are just proposing to paint that a neutral gray to match the neighbors. So that was a gray tone that was color match from when we were on site. Using a dark gray for the ephes. It's called RAL 7022. And at the corners, for some added interest, we are adding an aluminum batten system as well as the typical McDonald's word mark and logo signage. I know in addition to these exterior renovations and updates, there are also proposed improvements and some proposed improvements to the existing drive-through and site conditions, which I think we have the civil engineer Bowler on this call as well, who can speak to that.
Thank you for unmuting. I muscle memory caused me to mute there, so I appreciate it. But yeah, like as Michael said, the majority of the improvements here, and you can see if you can go to page 12 for me, that would help me kind of talk through it. He's already covered most of what we would consider like the civil scope of the work. You know, the patio to be, and handrails and guardrails there to be repaired, the trash enclosure to be patched and repaired. You know, the existing Burger King Center will be largely left as is, just from a site's perspective. Obviously, the architectural will be modified, but the other items that Michael has kind of alluded to, but not quite hit on the nose, is the ADA improvements that we'll be making to the site. We'll be improving the ADA condition to make sure it remains compliant with regulations and requirements. Most of the disturbance will be made to the sidewalk adjacent to the building. We'll be moving the ADA spaces from those angled spaces shown on the page south to a flatter area on the site, the parking lot to the east of the building. There, it's much closer to the sidewalk as well. We won't need to be directing pedestrians across the drive aisle. And they're very minor curb changes needed to fit the required menu boards in the drive-through. You can see two little small areas of LOD, limits of disturbance, on the eastern side of that parking lot I was just referring to. You know, we are modifying curbs by, you know, less than a couple feet to make sure that we can fit the menu boards in there, and obviously make sure that we are maintaining the required minimum width for parking stalls. I believe we're probably at 9 feet wide there. So again, very minor changes to the site conditions, mostly patching and repair work to the enclosure, and changes to the patio, ADA improvements, and then adding in the required McDonald's standard menu boards to replace the old signage that was shown previously for Burger King. And then obviously adding lighting to the site was an item that we're showing here. So some light poles additionally being added in there sporadically. It should cover, I believe, all of the civil scope items.
Now, are you affecting any of that existing vegetation along Colts Neck Road with?
No, sir. No, everything, all of our disturbance shown will be, you know, essentially inside of the drive-through lane. So no disturbance to the buffer along Colts Neck Road is anticipated. Everything is going to be kind of paged south of that drive-through lane and really on the interior of the site.
And do you know, it may say this, but do you know how many poles you're adding?
It looks like just there's going to be a 3-headed light fixture on the bottom left of the image, or it's kind of
at the entrance.
Yep, prop triple head area light, and then there's, I believe, just one other light pole, pretty much at the center of the screen right now. Prop single head area light. I believe that was all that was going to be added. And there's a separate lighting section in this package that was submitted, I believe, that has some more information. And we obviously modeled the existing lights to remain. So that one that's on the top of that eastern parking lot, that's shown is bold black lines there. That one's an existing one that will remain and isn't going to be changed.
It looks like from what I can tell is it's two new lights. There's really one over by kind of the patio seating area, let's call it, and then one at the back of the drive-through by the dumpster. The other two are actually already there. Okay. All right. You guys have anything else to present? Is there somebody presenting signage?
I don't have anyone listed. Michael, are you going to present the signage? Ken Paget submitted the packet, but he's not on the call. Wondering if either.
So typically for the signage, that's like a proprietary item. So that's not something that architecturally we really do much work on beyond show on the elevations. Was there like a specific question on like what you see on our rendered elevations?
Well, I just wanted to, a couple questions. Right now, you guys are proposing a sign on Colts Neck Road, which currently there is no sign there, and there's a huge vegetation presence, so I don't understand the point of that sign. Burger King had it kind of on above where the trash enclosure was, and then above the kind of the patio situation. And then they had kind of their nomenclature on like the big sign to the left of the front door. So I just was a little confused at the sign kind of along Colts Neck Road and whether it's really necessary. So that was one question I had. I don't know if anyone else kind of felt about that as well. I also always thought the one above the Burger King trash enclosure, I always thought was kind of funny. I felt like it wasn't really necessary. So I just wasn't sure if there was somebody here that could talk about that, but it sounds like there's not. So that's fine. We'll review what we have, and then if there's any questions, we can, put it in our motion.
So the signage would be removed over the trash enclosure. So there wouldn't be anything there.
Yeah, it looks like you're putting it over kind of the front door-ish area and then the one along the drive-through. And then there's none on either kind of short elevation, let's call it. There's just one M sign above kind of a side door off the patio, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So let's go around the room and see if there's any questions. Or is there an affected party, staff?
There is an affected party.
Are they here to speak?
They are not here. I couldn't identify them just for safe, just to make sure if Mary Kimberly, if you are present, if you could please raise your hand. And yeah, I wasn't able to identify her. And there are no hands raised.
Okay. Cool. Let me grab something here real quick. So we'll go around the room and see if anyone has any questions, and then we'll go from there. Elena, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Samantha, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Real quick, Margaret, are you raising your hand? I know you're the board rep. Do you have a comment? Affected partyness? Can you guys unmute her real quick, Steph?
Yes, she's unmuted.
Michael, this is more just a question for you guys, right? Because I don't participate in general. But I just want to make sure that when you guys are looking at this, coming around the corner around that trash bin has always been treacherous. And I just want to make sure that you guys are really taking a close look at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. John, did you have any questions?
No.
Mike?
Negative, sir. Thank you.
Brian?
No questions.
All right. I don't have any questions right now. Well, I guess I do have a question. So right now you guys are proposing to paint all that existing masonry, correct?
That's correct.
Does do the new models not have any? I mean, I guess you guys have a select material palette that you kind of can work with typically.
That's correct.
And right now, I guess the new theme, from what I can tell, is you kind of have those battens. There is EIFS on even new ones, and then there's it looks like there might be a side, almost like a lap siding or I just from a quick Googling it of it, that there's some other materials that you can put on the property. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
I'm wondering if like the faces are just a little bit too, I don't know if they need a little bit more breaking up. Mainly that kind of main facade is really the only thing that I'm struggling with just a little bit. Obviously you're just painting kind of what was there, but unfortunately that what was there was not really always the most attractive building. So I'm trying to help kind of elevate it a little bit. So that's just kind of a comment for kind of the board to think about as we go around and have some further discussion.
Yeah, the existing one has a couple more like joint lines and stuff. Will those remain and maybe they're just not shown on the elevation?
So right now, as it's shown, this would be a smooth EIFS face.
Okay.
Is Tammy the applicant as well?
Yes. Hey, yes, sorry. I was trying
Yeah.
to get unmuted. Yes, so that's our typical faces. We tried not to do too much, so we wouldn't disturb too much of the exterior. So, y'all would be a little more, it wouldn't change it all that much, but we can modify, materials. But this is our typical. And since we're behind so many trees, I was going to give you an answer to the signage along the back on Colts Neck Road. Maybe someday those trees will be too much and you'll have to take them out and we'll have some signage back there. But until then, the branding always puts McDonald's on 3 sides of the building. Usually that's why we have it back there.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't have any signage around anywhere else really on the property.
Okay. Okay. The only thing when I'm looking at this facade, it's very, and maybe it's as simple as maybe the EIFS does need some, some grid lines or something that just kind of helps break it up. It's just going to be a very big rendered surface that I feel like it needs a little bit of something there. It's the main entrance, kind of when people are in the shopping center, this is all they really see of the building. And it's already bad enough that we already have to look at the trash enclosure, which isn't your fault. It was already there. Is there a way to, give it a little bit different treatment, maybe on that wall, maybe just at the parapet a little bit, even if it's just, maybe we still have a section of EIFS and then we have a section of the board on board or the siding, or maybe there's a little bit more of
we do use like a hardy board finish on some buildings as well, probably the same color, but it would give it some texture.
Right. I'm just thinking,
Mm-hmm.
just something potentially. And it looks like, are you guys modifying, it looks like the window configuration as well, just a little bit. Is that accurate, or am I?
No, so we're just, the windows will be in the same place. We're just putting in a new aluminum, like a new storefront window.
Right, but you're going from there's like a 4-panel system now, and you're going to a 3-panel system on the front facade there, it looks like.
Correct. Yeah, to kind of make the windows feel a little bit more open as opposed to being closed in.
I think that change is successful. I also like the grouping of 3 versus the grouping of 4. I think that is successful. I think getting rid of the mansard is a no-brainer. You're going to modernize kind of the structure. So I think all of that is good. There's just, I don't know. I hate painting masonry because then it needs to continually be painted. No one can do it really that well, especially with that split face block or whatever that is that's existing on there. I'm just hesitant from that standpoint. I know you guys are trying to, make it all cohesive, but it does look like you guys do have a brick texture as a part of your kind of new brand as well still. Am I, an unpainted brick? Is that accurate?
That's correct. Although that would be I think it's Glengarry. Let me see. I'm trying to remember the name off the top of my head, but it's a Glengarry brick.
Yeah, I just know maybe I'm just trying to think about ways to just kind of break up, and like we already kind of have that banding happening. Does it make sense to just paint, as much as I hate it, the bottom portion that's the the CMU block size, the modular size down there, but leave the brick. I don't know if that would help help the situation.
Or maybe, Michael, do you mind if I?
Yeah, go for it, Brian.
Just because I think my reaction is just tying into yours, where my first read on it, it's a nice contemporary look, but I am worried it's a little bit too dark. And so part of me is wondering, instead of leaving the brick, which is like a red brick or whatever, may not fit, is it possible to leave like the concrete block base unpainted? I don't know the exact color of that. I'm just looking on Google Street View or whatever. I don't know if it would fit with the palette, but I think the read I'm getting in that just how dark it is I see what you're saying about trying to tie into the existing shopping center, and I think they use some of that dark siding kind of at the corners, as kind of like as a highlight element. But really but predominantly it is pretty light, and so I'm worried if maybe we need to bring this back just a little bit. To add some kind of lighter elements, or to Michael's point, I almost wonder, could we use like I know it's the wood grain, I know the aluminum batten system, could we use more of that helps kind of bring in a little bit more warmth to the overall palette? Is there more opportunity to use that?
Yeah, we could, I was thinking the same thing, because it's a lot of horizontal in this thing, so we could put some more verticals elements.
Yeah, and if this was the rear facade, I wouldn't really care, but it's the main
Right.
facade that you see of the building to the shopping center. And so it's like, I do like maybe adding some more of that wood, or the fake wood, aluminum wood, whatever we want to call it.
I did want to ask so you've got the manufacturer, and but you call it the wood grain. Do you know which? It looks like there's a lot of wood grain options from this manufacturer. Do you know which one you'd be going with?
It depends on what's available. We use so much of it. Sometimes it's smooth. Sometimes it's got a texture to it, like a wood grain texture. But if there's a specific kind you need, we can order it and get that in.
Well, I don't know if there's a specific kind. I mean, of course, that's, up to you guys for what goes with the palette. I'm just looking, at the options, and it ranges from like, really light maple to, I mean, it goes really red, really dark, which I would avoid, of course. But I think that would be an important thing to clarify for the kind of the overall palette. Because right now and I know it's a rendered elevation, it may not be exactly accurate. It's reading kind of really dark reddish cherry wood, in my opinion. I wonder if that could be lightened up to help as well.
Yeah, because the ones I'm looking at, they kind of are much more leaning towards, let's call it, oak coloring versus the red, from what I see on some other stores, kind of with this option. But I definitely think it's close. I don't think we're, against it. I think it's just more of a, how do we maybe look at that front facade, or side, let's call it the southeast elevation, how you guys have it labeled. How do we dress that up just a little bit, where that big facade is? Maybe it's less dark paint, maybe it's more wood paneling. Does anyone else have any thoughts on any of the signage, the lighting, the elevations? You guys are seeking final approval, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Even before we paint the whole building, is it possible to, like, if you guys want to come out and see swatches of it on the building before we do everything, and if we have to change it then, or?
I love that idea.
Yeah. People will do that as well, where they kind of
Yeah.
they'll do a mock-up of, you know, what's going on.
Yeah, this way we can see it, because this still doesn't show it. It looks pretty dark here, and McDonald's are usually not that dark. So
Yeah.
if we could,
Is Nobert Koss with you?
Robert. Yeah.
Robert?
Hey, hey guys. Hey guys. Thank you very much for unmuting me. Yeah, I was going to make that suggestion as far as bringing in a palette. Yeah, the rendering is dark, but I think that once we bring a palette to your group, to kind of and we can go as far as within a sample, we can bring multiple um, samples, lighter, darker, that one fits fits with McDonald's color palette, and also gives you the option of kind of to mix and match. But of course, if we go down one pattern, one avenue of coloring, we have to, for branding purposes, we have to stick with that. But and to answer your question, Michael, yes, we are seeking final approval today. But I think that some of the finishes, if we can agree on the project materially, finishes, we can absolutely work with your team. Patrick has been wonderful to work with, so so we can certainly go that route.
Okay, cool.
we can have USRD look at the elevation too as we go through this. The aluminum battens, there were lighter before. They've gone to this darker wood grain finish. But even if we do have a lighter paint that we use. We can get a sample of that too. I'm doing it on another building, but it's more towards the beach. But
And it may be just is also submitting like this is a real life picture of what it looks like.
yes, yeah,
Would also be very helpful, because I think I'm looking, you know, I'm just Googling quickly and then, you know, using image search, and it's helping me see really truly what these, you know, this palette looks like. And they, you know, obviously the rendering is just, you know, it's just a computer drawing, whereas the actual in-person stuff looks much nicer. So I definitely think that could be helpful. Elena, do you have a comment?
Yeah, also, I think it's a Rite Aid, I don't know, across the street, they've started, across the parking lot from this location, they've started using some of those colors. I think it'd be really helpful to see the actual colors also at the site, that, at least for me.
yeah.
Because we can't, obviously, we can't think of this in isolation. The rest of Hutter's Wood, you know, the rest of the shopping center has been evolving.
Yeah, I think it does also, it does have, you know, it is an out parcel building, so it does have a little bit of leeway as well, you know, because like.
Yeah, but we
if you look-
just want to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm just saying, I think there is a little leeway also that they don't need to match, because I don't, you know, that coloring, that does have a darker wood paneling that they put in.
Mhm.
And I would say that's almost maybe too dark.
Well, I'm not a big fan of this redesign, but we don't
Right.
want to, you know, we somehow want to improve on
Yeah.
it and not be a thorn, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is the nature of a mock-up versus you know, or a real life install versus what the rendering looked like, right? And
Mhm.
so, you know, just trying to prevent that again, I think would be helpful. So does anyone, I think the lighting it makes sense. I don't think they're adding any additional lights that aren't warranted. I think the extra light at the drive-through potentially will help this trash enclosure issue. I think the biggest issue is probably just, you know, keeping sure that that door is shut there, which obviously we can't, you know, enforce, but I think that's gonna, you know, it's a very unfortunate location, but obviously they put it where they could when they built this originally. What we can do is, if people are open to it, anyone that has any other comments, we could, you know, kind of do a conceptual approval where we approve of the overall concept of it, but request kind of more information on the detailing of whether, you know, maybe you break up the ephes into different joints. Do you introduce a third, you know, material? Do you not paint some of it? I think there's, you know, there's definitely some ways that we could just break up a little bit of the monotonous that is currently here, and then also giving us some real world examples of different installs. You know, luckily we have the luxury. You guys are doing a bunch of these, so there should be, you know, some real world examples you guys could provide us to kind of give us a better feeling for the color scheme as well. Does anyone have any other comments or want to make a motion?
All of McDonald's eyes are on this because they're going to come see this because this is one of the first Burger Kings we're converting into a McDonald's. So they're always asking on our national calls, "How's Reston?"
Well, then that means we want to make it good. We want to
I
make
know we do,
We want to
exactly.
make it look great. So, does anyone have any other comments? Want to make a motion?
I think you kind of just did. You want to
Yeah.
reiterate it?
Yeah, I retroactively use all that language now. I'm not going to do that to Patrick or LaShonda. They're going to hate me. I'll make a motion to conceptually approve the application, and request the applicant to submit final elevations with exploring potentially a third material or a breaking up of the ephes or not painting all of the masonry to help lighten or expanding the wood battens to potentially lighten up the southeast elevation that fronts Colts or fronts Hunter's Woods Plaza Shopping Center. And request them to resubmit that elevation and also resubmit, potentially restudying the sign placement along Colts Neck Road as it's not visible. And I believe that's it.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion, there's a second. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. Norbert, you have a question?
Yes, sir. As far as working with your team and getting renderings, getting real life pictures, can you provide some direction as to how to do we work with Patrick directly for submission?
Yes. So basically, with the conceptual approval, you have kind of, this is like, hey, we like what you're going, but we need some more information. So you do have to come back to one more meeting with us, and so that information will go through Patrick. And he'll make sure that you guys kind of are meeting the intent of our letter, but basically we'll send you a letter that outlines what we're looking for. And then you'll submit that. And then, you know, Patrick or LaShonda, if they want to get on the panel, the full board meeting for next month, when do they need to submit it to you guys by?
So next month's meeting is the 20th. The agenda goes out on the 13th, so I would need it by August the 9th.
August 9th. Okay.
Yeah. So if you guys, you know, it gives you 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks to basically put together kind of what we've asked for and get on that agenda. And then that way you guys can get your approval. And then I'm sure you're going through, you know, permitting with Fairfax County now.
Well, that actually was going to be my next question as far as since we do have an agreement in place, are we able to submit for permitting? Obviously,
yes,
as you know, permitting.
You can.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
you can.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
You can't start work until you have, you know, kind of our approval necessarily from a design perspective on the exterior, but interior work is not under our purview. So as long, if you guys had a building permit even for the inside, you could actually start, you know, on that work. So
yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, 3 weeks is more than enough time. We'll get it back to you guys.
Get it to you guys.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. I don't see anything else. We have nothing else, right?
That is it.
All right, cool. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steph.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
good night,
Pat.
y'all.
Have a good night.